writing for such a long time, I'm comfortable with the medium. And I've realized that, one second, that um, I've realized that copywriting cannot become professional in 2 days time, 3 days time, 5 days time. It's not something that can be done. At best, we can pick up a series of processes which we can get comfortable with. And if we get comfortable with those processes and apply it to the copy we are writing or any kind of content that we are creating, it should make a difference in our lives. The difference being that more people will engage with our content, more comments will be left, positive comments, even negative comments, both educate us. So stuff like that. So in the entire process, I'm never ever going to say you'll become a magical copywriter in 5 days. That's just not going to happen. And I've never done that in my life. I know it's taken me a heck of a long time to really write copy that I like and my clients like. And it really earns me a decent amount of money today. But then there's a lot of effort that's gone in. So I'm going to share my screen now and I'm going to kick off. Let me get to my slideshow and start from the beginning. Now, this is the kind of question. I do a lot of guest lecturing at various places. MBA colleges, for one, there seems to be a shortage of people with the kind of experience that I can bring to the table in the digital marketing space. So I get invited quite often all across India to go to various management colleges and talk about digital marketing per se, like what goes into it, and how to be successful at it, and so on and so forth. And one of the topics that I get thrown at me is this question: does knowing buyer demographics really 10x your income? Now, there is a motive. When people ask me this kind of question, there is a motive behind it. Whilst before we get into that motive, for all the people that don't know who I am, hi, I'm Ivan Beros. I'm a published author. I've been writing code for about 43 years, and I've been a business mentor for several people in India and abroad. I have an MTech and an MBA from Manchester, UK. And these are just some of the books that I've written. The reason I'm taking a couple of minutes of your time to show you this is because this is the way that I want to share or gain a bit of validity. Now, these are just books. I will get into Amazon. I've opened Amazon inside a slide, and you can have a look at the books that I've written. These are the books that are being sold on Amazon. You can simply go into Amazon and in the book section type Ivan Beros, and you'll get access to all my books. There are several pages of books like this, so I have written a hell of a lot. Not just a little bit, a hell of a lot. A lot of the books are used in Pakistan universities as training material, in Singapore University, NUS, a heck of a lot of universities across India, so on and so forth. I mean, I love to write. It's a passion. I enjoy making stuff simple for others if I can. And the greatest pleasure is when someone comes up and tells me, Ivan, I understood what you said. I applied it in my business, and I've got, let's say, another 25,000 coming in, or another 50,000 coming in, or another 5,000 coming in. I enjoy that kind of engagement with my people. So books and writing. Now, these number of books on Amazon, and there are a hell of a lot more books that I've written, really. They provide me a very decent income. I can live a good life. My wife and I, before COVID prevented us, my wife and I used to do quite a bit of traveling. I've gone and lived in Prague and Budapest and a hell of a lot of places all across the globe. And we normally go and rent a Airbnb 1-bedroom all kitchen, and we stay for a month, and we meet people and we look at the local cuisine and stuff like that. And it all comes from writing. And it also comes from tech and a bit of business consultancy, but my major income comes from writing. So the question that I often get asked is, does knowing my ideal buyer demographics really multiply my sales and income? The tone of this question, when it's thrown at me, it's always dripping with disbelief. What that really tells me is the person asking me this question has already come with a decision, or this person has already come with some baggage that they are carrying. Or perhaps they feel that, good God, this is more useless work I'm supposed to do. And that is largely because the concept of the connection between buyer demographics and an increase in income just doesn't exist in very many very many newbie business owners. It just doesn't exist. And I can actually empathize. I feel their pain. They're doing so many things. They're creating a website, they're writing home pages, about us pages, privacy policy, landing pages, they're creating Facebook ads. They're trying to do it all themselves. And now they've got this idea about buyer demographics. They really don't see a connection between buyer demographics and sales and income. And there I am talking about the most important thing being customer demographics. So a lot of people come and throw this at me. Now, I usually answer that question with questions of my own. I don't sit down to answer that question with a whole load of answers. I've always been surprised at how counter questions, they seem to trigger a lot more thinking in the listener. And my drive is, if I can get people to think about the issue that we are looking at, like in this particular case, customer demographics. If I can get them to think about it, they'll begin to understand the value and they'll leverage it for more money. Now, because I ask questions, then just delivering an answer, I have found that a good 25-30% of the people sit down and listen to me, which I found kind of fascinating. Here are the kind of counter questions I ask. I ask, like, what would what if you knew in advance what your site visitors' monthly income is? What if you knew your site visitors' living expenses? Now, why are living expenses of any interest to a digital marketer or to a content creator or to a copywriter or to an e-commerce website owner? Well, you've got to understand this. Living expenses will be spent from income first. You've got to pay rent, you've got to pay electricity, you've got to pay mobile phones, you've got to pay for your wife's saris, you've got to take her out twice a month. If you've got a kid, you've got school fees, blah, blah, blah. So before any additional expenditure is incurred, living expenses are deducted. Now, far too many entrepreneurs haven't a clue as to what their target market's living expenses are. They don't have a clue as to what their site visitors' current responsibilities are. Now we're talking about a wife. We're talking about children. There could be parents, aged parents, who've got medical conditions where money has to be spent on medication. Now, as an entrepreneur, if you know all of this in advance, if you knew what price range your site visitors can afford, if you knew what product or service your site visitors really want and need, and if you knew what your site visitors' disposition to purchasing via the internet was, wouldn't you sell to them a whole lot easier? Now, since I'm not answering questions, I'm throwing questions at them. Most human beings sit down and actually start processing one or two of these. And if you process these questions yourself and you get a resounding yes for any of them, then you actually have the answer to the last question, wouldn't you sell to them a whole lot easier? And once I've captured your attention, and once you've believed that there is power in these questions, I'm halfway to winning. That's when I discovered that a large percentage of people asking me about customer demographics sit up and listen, and they hear what I'm saying. I think it's the words easier to sell to them that actually does this. Because if you can do anything in your power, if you're a copywriter and you write copy that sells brilliantly, your client will be very happy with you. If you're an entrepreneur and you're writing the landing page, sales page content yourself, and that is engaging, arresting, and answering the wants, needs of your site visitors and selling, you'll be a very happy person when you look at your bank account. The words easier to sell to them is something that all copywriters, entrepreneurs, freelancers, whoever we are, if you're going to play with words, we need to know that whatever we do to words is connected to selling, because selling is connected to income. Now, at the end of the day, if there is not, if there is a very poor income in your bank account, you will be struggling to take care of the day-to-day needs in your life. Now, let's look at something else. Let's think about momentarily, let's think about talking among friends. Now, why is talking with a friend easy, enjoyable? That's because we know them intimately. Now, what's the connection? I mean, how does that benefit us? You need to remember that friends often do 85%, 90% of the time, they often do what we want them to do. That is because we know them intimately. When we speak to them, we are speaking to them in a very conversational tone. There's nothing in your face or salesy when you're talking to a good friend. And if you ask for help or you ask them to do something for you, there's a very, very high likelihood that your friends will do what you want them to do. Now ask yourself, if you knew your potential buyers intimately, just like you know your friends, wouldn't this be the same between your site visitors and you? Now, what is the same thing that I'm talking about? Wouldn't you be able to get site visitors to do what you want them to do? Now, never forget that when a site visitor comes in, there is no human interaction. The only thing that arrests, engages, and converts a site visitor is the words, sentences, and paragraphs of the web page that they are engaging with. Now, you are writing. I mean, either the entrepreneur is writing, or the e-commerce website owner is writing, or the freelancer is writing, or the copywriter is writing. Now, how do you structure those characters, words, sentences, and paragraphs? How do you put them together in such a way that you drive your site visitor to do what you want them to do? Now, you're never going to be able to do this 100%, unless, of course, you're in a monopoly, in which case people who need your products or services have nowhere else to go. Keep strange things like this aside. If you understand the power of words and how you can use them, you'll then begin to understand that unless you know your site visitors intimately, it's going to be very difficult for you to write sentences, to structure sentences, put the right adjectives, the right adverbs, nouns, pronouns, articles, put them together in such a way that it's friendly, it's easy to read, it doesn't come across threatening, it's conversational, it sells, and it converts. Think about this. So how does knowing your customers well benefit you? Unless you begin to believe that knowing your customers intimately actually benefits you. Now, I'm not looking at intangible benefits. I would like to look at money. Money is a very, very tangible benefit, and all of us are driven by money. So I'm going to use that as an example. And if you can realize how knowing your customers well benefits your income, then you'll begin to believe this. Now, you will be in a strong position once you know your customers well. You will be able to decide what you need to say to them to drive sales. You'll be in a strong position to decide where you need to say it to them to drive sales. Now, let's do a slight look at the second sentence. Unless as an entrepreneur or a e-commerce guy or whatever you're doing to make money via the internet, selling a product, selling a service, drop shipping, I don't really care. Unless you know places on the internet where your ideal audience gathers together in large numbers so that you can address them easily, how do you sell to them? Now, how do you find those places on the internet where your customers gather together in large numbers? Unless you know your customers well. Now, where you need to say to them, you can look at saying it to them via your homepage, your About Us page. Over here, I'd like to set a flag for all those who are listening. Business, sales, a sale actually transacts between two human beings, not between a corporate entity and a human being. If you look at your About Us page and your About Us page is talking about your business, how many years ago you started it, it's ISO 9010, you've got these certifications, those certifications, gold medals, blah, 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 blah in your About Us page. It's a bad About Us page. You will be surprised once you start learning, once you start watching statistics carefully, once you start, measuring, okay, what is the first page that my site visitor went to after they hit my landing page? 99% you'll discover that it's your About Us page. Now, why are people going to the About Us page? Because they want to find out, who am I buying from? Does this person have an honest looking face? What's his or her story like? Is their story very similar to mine? Because if their story is very similar to mine, there's a certain amount of authority and trust that builds almost magically. Now, if they land on your About Us page and they're getting a whole ton of garbage about certificates and gold medals and years of service and what corporates you're working with and things like that, believe me, I think you're taking a gun and shooting yourself in the foot. Now, I don't say that you accept all I say as gospel. I say you create two About Us pages. One About Us pages which has all the stuff that you normally want to put in. Gold medals, ISO 9000, whatever the heck you want to put it in. And in one About Us page, you write the human side, your human side. And do an A/B test, 80-20. 80% of the time show your original About Us page, which you think is brilliant. 20% of the time show your About Us page, which is connected with you, talking about you as a human being. You're married, you have kids. There's somehow an instant rapport that's built. Hey, this guy's pain, my pain, probably the same. And test the conversions. Now, remember, there are two types of conversions. Sales are just one of them. Registrations are another. So I am talking about conversions. Look at the number of registrations you get. Look at the number of impulse buys you get. And based on that, make a decision which About Us page you'll run with, or you might have to actually blend content from both the pages and then see your conversions jump. You will also know how to say it to them. Now, to drive sales, remember, copy is only connected to money, nothing else. I mean, okay, partly it's connected to registration. But every copywriter worth their weight in gold is really looking at sales. Now, how to say it to them? Now, what's this all about? How do you write your sentences? How many words must there be in a sentence? I've seen sentences in pages that have got 27 words, 29 words in one sentence. It's the opening sentence on your landing or sales page. Think about it. People scan. They're not reading the 29 words, and you're losing sales. Your competitors picking it up because they've learned the difference. So you got to learn the art of how to say things to them. Now, what are you saying to them? You're basically telling them how, if they buy the product or service from you, how their lives are going to change. That's what you're telling them. You cannot tell them how brilliant your product is, how many years went into building it, how many millions of dollars went into research. Who cares, yaar? Absolutely nobody cares. Buyers are wanting to know what's in it for me. Now, how will you do this? You'll do this using headlines, subheadlines, paragraph content, powerful call to actions, appropriate data types. Now, what's an appropriate data type? You will know when to put in a video. You will know how to script the video in such a way that you drive conversions. This is all part of knowing how to say to them to drive sales. Now, you simply can't claim any of this if you do not know your customers well. Now, if you know your customers well, you know what you need to say to them. That means you have taken your product, you've taken your service, you've translated it to a value proposition and written it out beautifully. In other words, you're explaining to your prospect how your product or sale will change their product or service will change their lives. You're saying it to them at places where they gather in large numbers, or you're putting out attractive ads and bringing them to your landing page. And then you know how to write sentences and paragraphs and calls to action that actually drive sales. Now ask yourself very quietly if that will multiply your sales or not. So there are three key questions that we've crossed so far. You've got to look at them and figure out whether your answer is yes. And then realize that is all connected to knowing your customers well. So the kind of question that I get is, what empowers you to know your customers well? Now, if you need a PhD in behavioral science, I doubt we can sell. I don't have a PhD in behavioral science, believe me. I'm just a copywriter that loves to put English together so that it resonates, so that another human being smiles when they read my sentence and I capture their attention. Once I've got their attention, I got them to smile or I got them to feel my pain, I draw them into my content. No PhD in behavioral sciences. So it's simple stuff that empowers you to know your customers well. And there is just one document that empowers you to know your customers intimately. It's the ideal customer profile that you create. Now, you could be an entrepreneur, you will write the customer profile. You could be a freelancer selling a product or a service, you will write your ideal customer profile. You could be a copywriter doing this for a client. You will sit and talk to the client, understand the client's customer, you will create the profile. If you don't create this document, believe me, you don't know your customers well. And you won't be able to structure that magical information, that magical content that converts like crazy. It will always be 3 inches out of reach. So let's look at what the customer profile is all about. What's a customer profile? It's a document, and it's a fictional representation of as many of your ideal customer attributes as you can imagine. So you use Word, you can use Excel, but you need to put your customer profile, your customer attributes down, one attribute below the other. So it's a fictional representation. It's not based on anything real. Now, as we go through this learning, There is someone who has his mic on. Could you please mute yourself? You're disturbing others here. So, it's something that you do yourself. Now, if you look at this picture, doesn't the guy in orange jump right out at you? The same thing happens when you know your customers intimately. The customer jumps out at you, and you can start writing content that will arrest them, engage them, and convert them. Anamitra, can you mute this guy, yeah? Or I'll have to stop the...
अभी मैं किसी को पूछा तो उन्होंने ये नम डिपार्टमेंट इरबोद री नम डिपार्टमेंट इल्ला बोलते होते तो करेक्ट मालूम है तो ये होता है.
Yes.
Either push the guy out or block him.
I'm not.
देख तो ले, मैं पूछता हूँ कौन तुम रहे तो.
Okay, he seems to have gotten onto it. Oh, come on here, just a minute. Let me
correct.
I'm not getting this option. Maybe you might be getting it.
Correct.
Just a sec. I will just stop my screen and...
ठीक है बोल करता हूँ.
Good God.
Okay.
Guys, I mean, just take a little care. I mean, there are more than one people in the group. And if you're talking loudly and your mic is on, you're going to be disturbing people. That's a little unfair. Okay, let's get back. Let's start from where we had.
The previous point that you were explaining.
This one. You want to go from there? Okay.
Right content and...
So what's a customer profile? We're looking at, it's a document that you will write. It's a fictional representation. Now, you should immediately begin to relax, because this is, the first stage one customer profile is something you create. You'll write the age. We'll be looking at it. Okay. So it's a fictional representation. You put it in, then you start writing your content based on that. And as people begin to buy from you, you engage them in webinars, begin to talk to them, and begin to validate that customer profile. We'll be seeing that. Now, the idea of this slide was to tell people, look at the guy in orange. The guy in orange jumps out at you. And when you create your customer profile, your customers will jump out at you, and you will be able, you will be able to write content that engages, arrests them, and converts much easier than if you didn't. So a lot of questions that people ask me, how is a customer profile created?
1 second. Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
So is it like basically telling a story to the customer?
No, guys. Not story about the customer at all, man. It's the representation of buyer attributes: age, academic, married, unmarried, married kids, married, no kids, single, single, one bedroom, all kitchen, first job, no job. It's buyer attributes. You're telling no one any stories. You're learning your buyer. Once you know your buyer intimately, that's when you can tell them stories that they listen to. So how is your customer profile created? A lot of people worry about this. They seem to see this as a huge problem. Now, all you have to do to create a customer profile is to answer a set of questions. The answers to these questions is what scopes out your customer profile. Remember that your customer profile is a generalization. It doesn't describe all attributes of every customer. You can't. But you're gathering together a set of major attributes, because it is based on a group of maybe 10, 12 major attributes that you will write your headline, your subheadline, you'll choose your images, you'll write your paragraphs, you'll decide what is going to be the content of the first paragraph. It'll be about, say, 8 or 10 attributes. We're coming there. Now, it's a generalization. It doesn't describe all attributes, but it attempts to describe as many attributes as possible. Now, This gives rise, everyone asks me this, where do you get the questions from? I'm glad you asked that question. I hope it's on your mind. You've already downloaded an MS Word file earlier. It was shared in the WhatsApp group. Igert and a couple of people from abroad who are not added to the group, I will give you the URLs myself. So relax, I'll send it to you by email. There is a set of questions that I use, and these typical set of questions that I've used has come through learning from my mentors, my peers, and years and years and years of doing the same thing. So what is the profile? It talks about your buyer's education, age, preferences, income, occupation, media habits, what they aspire to. These all form elements in your customer profile. So what I will do is I will just click this Microsoft Word file. I'll bring it into my presentation. Now this is just, let me get it set to a single page so it doesn't disturb too much, and I'll increase the size of this so you can see it. Now this is the document that you've downloaded. You normally start off by writing a profile name, and there are little bits of explanations here, that you need to read, and based on this you fill in the blank. So you look at a typical age range, you min-max range with a 15-year span, 30 to 45 years. So there are examples. Now remember that these age ranges are not cast in concrete. You're trying to get a profile to understand your guys, understand the people here. What is their gender, male or female? Remember that you need to create 2 customer profiles. One customer profile for males and one customer profile for females. Because whether we like it or we don't like it, women buy for completely different reasons than why men buy. Now the product could fit both men and women. And you need to create 2 customer profiles. So gender is pretty important. What is their level of education? What is their occupation? Never forget that you can update all of this using real data once you start selling. Because once you start selling, what you'll do is you'll engage with people, you'll run webinars, you'll run workshops, you'll talk to them, you'll get friendly with them. They'll come and read your FAQs, they'll post a few questions, and that's how you start really validating then identify where they live in, tier 1 city, tier 2 cities. What is their household? Are they single? Are they living together? Are they divorced? Single parents? Race? So this is the kind of document you've already got. Now, I've given you this document basically is 2 parts. There is demographics, which is the first part, and there is psychographics, which is the second part. Now, psychographics really tells you why your target audience buys from you. Now, psychographics are a little trickier. So I would say you first focus on creating at least 1 male and 1 female profile. After you're comfortable with that, made a couple of sales, written your sales page, written your landing page, about us page, etc., to fit that profile, and some sales happen, you start conducting a couple of workshops and stuff, engaging with your people, and begin to understand their psychographics. What are their hobby, their interest? What are their political slants? Are they outdoor people, indoor people? What are their favorite TV shows? What problem are they solving using your product and service? Far too often, entrepreneurs have no real clue. They believe that their product or service is actually solving something, let's say A, whereas their buyers are using their product or service to solve B. So it's really very, 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 very different. So the simple way of learning is just ask, gather 4 or 5 guys together, give them a freebie, give them something of value to them, and then begin talking to them and say, what is the problem that you're solving? Now, you are the guy that created the product, you're the guy that's reselling a product. You know what that product or service actually does. And you might be really surprised at what people are using it for. Now, figure out what the concerns or anxieties a customer has about your business. Try and understand what would make a customer never return to your business. That will result, in low, supposing you got really poor after sales service. You have no formal way to register. Someone wants to complain about something that's going wrong with the product they've bought or the service they've bought. You have no way that no way to handle it. These are things you need to focus on. And this is all part of customer psychographics. So this is a document you've already got. You need to read it. Like I told you earlier, when we kicked off, copywriting or creating content that engages is not something that happens overnight. I'm really sorry if I'm bursting your bubble, but this is the truth of the matter. You've got to keep on, getting to know people. You got to like getting to know people. You've got to be friendly. You've got to be willing to be criticized. You've got to be able to separate constructive criticism from just bitching and moaning, and then take the constructive criticism and action it. And that happens over time. And that is when you become an excellent copywriter. Now, what I will do is I will just close this and get back to my presentation. Now, customer demographics, physical attributes, age, gender, education, occupation. I hope this answers the question that was thrown by a gentleman earlier on. I mean, are we telling them stories? We are not. We're just learning them.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, if you look at the picture, the left-hand side is how entrepreneurs tend to look at customers. They look at customers that all look the same. Whereas if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see that each customer is unique. They're different. Their wants, needs, pains, the way they think is different. And the greatest power that a copywriter has is to structure a sentence that everyone on the right-hand side resonates with very, very quickly. Now, if you can do that, you'll make a lot of money writing. And believe me, I'm not just hanging a carrot. I mean, you'll really make a lot of money when you can look at customers like on the right-hand side and not on the left-hand side. Demographics help you understand who your customer is. Psychographics is customer behavior. Psychographics tells you why your customer buys. So if you're a copywriter or you're a content creator, if you're a freelancer, if you're an e-commerce website owner and you're writing your own landing pages using Wix or any damn thing, I don't really care. If you want to be sure that your content is engaging, arresting, and converting, you must keep these things focused in your mind. Now, what does your customer profile allow you to do? What are the advantages when you do this? Your customer profile helps you segment your customer. Remember, when you start selling well, you never have one landing page and you never have one kind of ad where your ad sends everybody to a single landing page. Once you've identified your customers, their wants and needs, you will create different ads, different messaging, and you will attempt to send a specific type of customer to a specific type of landing page. There, the headline will be different, the images will be different, the video copy, the video script will be different. There will be a slightly different message that will go out on that landing page when you compare it to maybe another landing page. Both selling the same product, both selling the same service. Remember that. We are dealing with the same product, same service, but we're dealing with different kinds of people. So we can get broad segmentation. Now, where will you draw your customer? You'll draw all this information from customer purchase information. Now, I'm looking at segmentation examples. There are customers who return to your site again and again only for freebies. I know so many of them. Every one of us in this group probably knows them. There is really no point in including their attributes when you're targeting your Facebook ad or when you're targeting your Google ad. It's insane. I mean, they're not going to come and buy anything from you. Now, there will be customers who will never make a purchase of greater than 99 rupees. Now, if you're trying to sell them a product of 999, not going to happen. Now, who should know? You should know. How do you know? You look at the buyer buying patterns once sales start, and you start identifying and segmenting these customers. Now, once you start segmenting these customers, you do a workshop, and then you'll suddenly realize, hey, all the people that are buying a product of 99 rupees might be 20 years and below. They're buying it from their pocket money. You might suddenly, you begin to discover you'll begin to discover vital attributes like this, which will help you write better copy. You will begin to discover people who make repeat purchases, but never greater than 199. You will discover customers who make a single purchase of 999. You'll identify customers who will make repeat purchases of 999. You'll get top-end customers who made a single purchase of, let's say, 4,999. You'll get customers who made repeat purchases of 4,999. And then finally, you'll be able to identify customers who will actively recommend your site to their friends and family to come and purchase from. Now, we are segmenting here only on money. Don't get the idea that money is the only segmenter. Money can be quickly used to segment because you can get it in your purchase. You can get it in your purchase statistics. Once you've segmented on your purchase statistics, you can sit down and say, hey, who is the type of person that bought 4,999? What was their age? Were they graduates or postgraduates? Were they in their first job or had they worked for the last 10 years? What could probably be their monthly income? Would they be married? Would they be unmarried? Would they have kids? Now you will begin to understand demographics after you do some segmentation on finance. Now, what are the actionable insights you get from customer profiles? You will be able to figure out the best way to reach out, engage, and connect with your customer. I always emphasize, I always keep telling people that unless your customer feels comfortable with you, unless you feel comfortable with a customer, you're not going to buy. A buy-sell transaction won't happen. Look at something very simple. If you've ever gone to, the bazaar with your wife and you're carrying the bags and paying the bill, watch which vegetable vendor she buys stuff from. Now, if I go and buy vegetables, I go to the first tomato guy and buy it from him, buy a kilo and push off. My wife won't do that. She'll talk to about 4 or 5 different guys and she'll go and buy from one particular guy. And I keep asking her, why do you talk to 4 guys? I mean, go straight to the guy you wanted. No, women don't work like that. But you will discover after some time that particular tomato vendor has a very nice way of reaching out and engaging with their customer, which is why the wife goes there.
They observe a lot, they bargain, and then they finally select the one tomato. Yeah, so that's what I observed.
Yeah, if you can do that in your copy, people will pay you money and smile when they pay you. So you can also identify different types of promotions that will engage this customer. What kind of Facebook ad will attract this customer? You can look at steps to alleviate the customer's anxiety to buy. Now, what is this? You can always add things like that say, well, in 14 days, if you don't like my product or service, don't give me a reason. Simply send me an email saying you want your money back and I'll give you 100%. I'll refund your money 100%. You are addressing your customer's anxiety to buy. Now, you can do this brilliantly if you know your customer. You'll also know which products and services fits the wants, needs, and pain, because as you begin to understand, as you start engaging, which is why I tell you Learning the right copy takes time. In my humble opinion, minimum 6 months, maximum 9 months. And after that, if you have the patience to plod and work steadily at it, you're going to hit gold. And at the end of the day, that's what we are all looking for. You will also be able to identify the type of promotions that are not going to work. Now, you might be spending money, when you're looking at promotions, these are all paid promotions. Running a paid promotion that is not going to work with your target audience because you don't understand their profile is terrible. I mean, it's unforgivable, really. Now, there are simple ways that you can validate your customer profile. Remember, you created your customer profile. It was a fictional document. You answered a couple of questions. You looked at your product or service, and you said that this product or service should be able to fit this demographic. Now you need to validate. Someone has made a purchase from your site. So you have their name, their email ID, their contact telephone number, maybe their address. You've got some fundamental, reliable information about the customer. Now go and gather a ton more genuine information from their LinkedIn and Facebook accounts. I go to LinkedIn. You can search on LinkedIn using email IDs. You can search on customer names. You can do validation. There are tools that will allow you to, search on LinkedIn for a certain profile. Now, once you're on that profile, LinkedIn you'll find that LinkedIn, being a professional social channel, you will understand what their designation is, what company they are working for. If you know designation and company, you can make a generally accurate prediction of the kind of salary they are earning. And if you go to their Facebook account, you can make a generally good prediction of whether they're married, whether they have kids, they don't have kids. And you can now blend and you say, okay, this guy's salary is ₹1,00,000. He's married. He has 2 kids. More than likely, his monthly expenditure is 85,000, which means his disposable income is 15,000. Now, if you are trying to sell a product worth 50,000 rupees, 50, that person cannot buy from you because they really don't have the disposable income. So your targeting changes, your Facebook headline will change, the image will change, the demographic that you feed your Facebook ad manager will change, because now you need to hit people who are actually earning, let us say, 2 lakhs a month. So 85, 90,000 will go for running life, and they now have a 1,10,000 or a 90,000 or a 70,000 surplus income, which they might use to buy a product. So you need to actually do this kind of homework. And when you do this, I'm sure everybody in the group will realize that you're honing your customer profile. It's getting more and more accurate. Now compare all this information in the customer profile and validate the accuracy. The moment you start getting really accurate customer profile information, you need to take the next step, the application of all of that into the content you create. So why do you want to go through all this trouble? Why do all this magajmari? Just write your landing page. Okay, let's figure that out. It's your customer profile that determines the most appropriate content of the key pages in your website. It helps you decide the product and service you'll sell via your website and what price range you'll use. Now, if you determined that, 80% of your customers are, let's say, have a disposable income of 2,000 rupees, you should choose products and services that are positioned at about 1,500 rupees that can make a measurable change in your customer's life. And that's the kind of message you need to put in your key pages. It also defines your digital marketing strategy, because your digital marketing strategy needs to drive focused customers. Now, what the hell is focused customers? Focused customers are people who've got the disposable income to pay the price, to work within your price range. They have the want, need, and pain that your product or service will relieve 100%. And you are writing about that very engagingly in your key pages. If you sit and think about this very calmly for a few minutes, you'll realize that is what actually sells. Remember, focused customers buy. Focused customers are people with the money to buy. They have a want, need, and pain that your product or service can relieve 100%. All you have to do is craft content in a conversational, friendly manner that will convince them that if they don't buy from you, they're just hurting themselves. So let's do a succinct recap of what we've done so far. Visualize the attributes of your perfect customer using the document that I sent you. Answer those questions, take out those answers, put it in a Microsoft Word file. I used to put it up on a softboard, pin it up and look at it. And I used to ask my clients to give me pictures at male, females. I used to put up pictures on my softboard when I used to write copy. And I used to visualize, I used to look at those pictures, visualize what those guys could be looking at, go to some of the Facebook groups, look at the kind of sentences when they are talking about their wants, needs, and pain in a Facebook group. They are using sentences that you should use in your landing page. Because if you pick up a sentence from what they are saying, it'll resonate with your customer instantly. So visualize your attributes, document your customer profile, draw in site visitors based on the customer profile you've created. That means your Facebook ad headline, image, body copy, call to action is all tailored to your customer profile. When you go into your Facebook ad manager, even if you're doing broad profiling, 90% of that broad profiling will be controlled by the attributes of your perfect customer. In parallel, triple check what your home, about, contact, and landing page content communicates to your site visitors. If you can blend these two, you will start selling in a way that's difficult to imagine. That is because you are selling a product or service to someone who wants to buy at a price they can afford. And how did you know this? Hey, you spent 2 months, 3 months, 12 weeks, 16 weeks learning the customer. Now, here's a pro tip. If you can't do this yourself, not all of us are blessed with the power to use words, and you really want good conversions, hire an experienced copywriter to do this. Be unashamed about it, because that copywriter who's experienced, who really knows what they're doing, that copywriter will bring you conversions like you can't imagine. So either you pick up the skill, or you pick up the skill enough to be able to control a copywriter so you don't accept any garbage that's thrown at you. But eventually you use a good copywriter, use their services to craft your home, about, contact, and landing pages, and you'll begin to see major changes in your conversions. Next, you need to ensure that your digital marketing strategy attracts the maximum people with the attributes you defined in your ideal customer to your website. Now, you've built everything. You've chosen your product. The price of that product is, you've chosen the product based on the wants and needs of your target audience. The price of that product is something that your target audience can afford. You've written your landing page content in a very friendly way, explaining how if your prospect buys it from you, their lives are going to change. How happy they'll be. What are the kind of changes that will happen? How much pain will go away? And if they don't buy from you, how their lives are going to get bugged up. All that should be there in your landing or sales pages, in your home page, your contact us page. Your contact us page should talk about you, what kind of human being you are. Now, last but not least, ensure that your site visitor's journey to completing a purchase is going to some kind of payment gateway and actually buying, taking out a credit card and buy. Check that every darn day. Keep testing that. Get your techie to test it out so that there are no bugs or implements. Because if you've taken so much of trouble, you've created a male persona, you've created a female persona, you've segmented the personas, you've bound those personas to wants, needs, and pain. You've chosen products and services at a price point that and when someone wants to buy, they can't. Oh, that's embarrassing beyond, comprehension. Now you step back and watch your sales online go northwards. It's really not rocket science. Basically, it's simple stuff. It's really, really simple stuff. Now, this is a generalized kind of thing. We're going to specifics on day 3, day 5. Now, I'd like to set a final note of warning. A customer profile is not static. It's not something that's defined once and forgotten about. If you do that, don't define your customer profile. Just punt. Customers are people. People grow older. Their responsibilities increase. COVID-19 hits them. 50% of their salaries are cut. People lose jobs. So a customer profile, their attributes is something that's alive. It keeps morphing. It keeps changing. As your customer profile becomes older, their wants, needs, pain will change. Their disposable income hopefully will increase. You can sell products and services that are more expensive, provided you know your customer profile and you go to your sales statistics and you keep analyzing your sales statistics and tweaking your customer profile constantly, and then using that tweaked customer profile to tweak your sales or landing page, tweak your home page, change to a new product or service that you think will fit your customer profile, do an A/B analysis and have a look. If it's working, magic. Now, at the end of this entire exercise, all you need to do is ask yourself this key question. Does knowing my customer demographics really multiply my sales? Now, at the end of the entire thing, you say no, then we've got a problem. If you say yes, then you need to spend time playing with customer demographics, creating them, creating your ads, creating your content, your web page content, etc., based only on the profile that you created. Now, this is what the next day, that is day 3. Tomorrow is question answers. Day 3 is another session. I'm looking at 6 skills that copywriters must have to deliver copy. See, now we've got the general idea. Okay, we understand demographics are a must. Now, after you understood that, you need to understand how you write sentences, paragraphs, headlines. How do you validate those headlines? What order do you put them, top down, left to right, so that you get the maximum conversions? So day 3, we're going to look at 6 skills. Like I said, it's not rocket science. It's not phenomenal skills. They're just 6 skills copywriters need to have that empowers them to deliver copy that sells brilliantly. We'll figure out what you have to do to achieve this. We'll figure out if there's a copywriting framework you can use confidently. Now, a copywriting framework is like a recipe book. How does your wife cook your favorite rasam or make your dal or your butter chicken? How does she do it consistently? She's following a recipe. And therefore, the output is determined. So if you've got a framework and you know how to create headlines, sub-headlines, paragraphs, sentences, words, etc., and you can apply that to a framework, 80% of your output is determined. Now, 20%, hey, this is business. There's nothing guaranteed. But it's not the other way around. It's not 20% that is determined and 80% on which you're punting.